All right. I'm going to try a few things out here. Sorry, give me a second. It's takes me a little second to set up because of what I'm using here, but I do want to wait for it to go live on my Facebook. I do want to commentate on a debate, an attempt at a civil conversation that I was trying to have with Doug. It's kind of hard to explain the basics of reasoning with him because he likes to and I guess he's probably like a quick thinking guy, but maybe like there's a disconnect between his mouth and his brain, or I don't really know exactly what's going on, but basically it's just hard to have a conversation with him in real time, because if he doesn't understand what you're saying immediately, it means you're wrong, and then he kind of like has some I don't know, thing going on where his attention span just kind of wanders off. And so, but I want to be really clear about a few things, kind of in hindsight, because it's clear what I'm saying. It's just kind of clear that Doug's not listening to what I'm saying. And I do have chats open. So if you, let me see. Yeah, if you comment on anything, you should be able to, I should be able to see it. So give me a second. I don't know why. What's happening here? Oh, I know what's happening. I know what's happening. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, live is just a lot easier. Okay. Yep, so again, commentating on a debate, attempted conversation I was having with Doug. He didn't really understand what I was saying, and he kind of chalked that up to my issues rather than kind of slowing down and trying to understand how he's struggling with reasoning, like pretty basic reasoning. He thinks this is all politics and emotions, and I get that. He doesn't think that he's an emotional guy, or he thinks that liberals are really emotional. And I'm actually not even here to disagree with him on a lot of that, because he is right to some degree. There are a lot of emotional liberals. There are a lot of emotional conservatives too. I think people on both sides have reasoning issues, but Doug also has this issue, clearly. So I'm hoping to kind of show where that's going on, because he says he's not making claims, and I'm sure that he would kind of give it to me that like it never comes out of his mouth, even though he kind of makes the mistake of let me see. He kind of makes the mistake of not answering the questions that you're kind of answering yes or no questions, which is a big thing with him. Like, it's a big thing with Christians, but you'll see him do it here. You'll see where I'm asking him if he thinks something and he's pivoting. So he's doing, and then I think this is a thing that a lot of liberals have said. Not to say that there aren't liberals on his channel that are being emotional, or that aren't being emotional or aren't being unreasonable, but there is a certain segment that just has a problem with the way that he's reasoning. And I'm not sure why I can't pull up my chat for my start an argument, but I'm going to save that for a different time, just to kind of cut to the chase as quickly as I possibly can. I understand that that's one of the reasons people like Doug, is because he talks quickly, and then he just he wants those sound bits. And I would just kind of hope that in the street epistemology community, we're more interested in reasoning and conversations, even if it takes longer. But okay, so let's see what's going on here. I need to make sure that there's nothing else. Just give me like another 30 seconds. Just kind of disappointed it's not showing up, because I know why it's not showing up now. Yeah. Forget it. Okay, so let's watch the video, and then I will break down what I'm saying pretty clearly, and you'll see that Doug is having an issue, and we had the same issue. So I'll bring up some other another conversation that we had where he's having another reasoning issue. He just is not able to understand that just because you have a claim and because you have information, that doesn't mean that the information sufficiently supports your claim. You have to like think critically about it and deeply. So let's watch it a little bit. Let's see. Output capture. Audio output. I'm working with like OBS, so okay. It's just taking me a second, but here we go.
I'll let you in because I do want to talk to Jerome later, but I can bring up whatever you want. Do you remember off the top of your head which chart you want me to look?
That might not be loud enough. I'll turn it up a little bit. All right.
God. Although if you can't see me, then that's a problem.
Yeah, it is.
Let me refresh. Hang on. Don't go anywhere. Let's see if this works. Do you see me now?
I do.
Oh, there we go. Okay, thank goodness. Okay, so do you remember any chart you wanted to look at, or?
I thought it was all on the same page.
I know, but there's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, from what it sounds like, and I don't know exactly what your claim is regarding it. That's where like I came in partway through on it.
I read an article and I made no claims.
Okay, so that's where you hear him saying, I made no claims, right? And again, we could get into the particulars of the word made, and I would already concede, sure, he didn't like say, I'm making this claim, but he's accepting claims that are incorrect based off the information. And that's where he doesn't seem to be able to get there. He doesn't seem to be able to see that's exactly what he's doing. I think some people in his comment mentioned a Mott and Bailey situation. They may have been talking about me, but he's certainly doing that as well.
I read an article.
So you're not saying that like men value truth more than women?
I would say according to this paper they do.
Okay, so that wasn't yes or no, but that's fair enough. Sure. Okay. Right, and I think that's one of the things we'll disagree on. Right, so the claim's pretty simple here, right? Men value truth more than women. That's what I just said, and that's what he's saying this paper says, even though it does not. Even like the data does not support that claim. It may make the claim in the paper. I have to go back and look because I'm still waiting for him to send it to me. But no, I guess I have to like again go to like basic reasoning here to explain that the information does not support that claim.
So you don't.
I'll use some analogies.
You don't like following the science?
I don't think that's just because they did a poll that's like scientific. Yeah, I don't think that's the way it works. Misunderstanding science.
Oh, I see. Let's say it's true that 60% of women value. Let me bring this up and see if you can see it. Can you see that?
Yep.
You see all of it, or is it cut off for you?
No, I see all of it.
Okay, so this is based on 574 undergraduates, graduates, PhD students, and 194. So let's say, do you question that this is right? That they made a mistake when they actually surveyed these people?
No, I don't think it's a true evaluation of how much a person values or how much people value.
It's exactly that. It's exactly that. They're given 100 credits, and they have to allocate these credits to 5 different categories. Okay, so here we have essentially the situation is they gave 100 credits to male and female, I guess staff, or yeah, you can read it right here, undergraduates, graduates, and PhD students, and they said of these, where would you allot like kind of how you view their importance? How much would you allot your assessment of their value or importance, right? And that's where we get this scale. And now Doug thinks that because of that,
that this means that men value truth, and let's be as fair as we can to him, because specifically it's saying advancing knowledge. So men care about advancing knowledge more than women. And this is not something you can conclude from the information. And if you notice towards the end of the conversation, which I'll show here, he starts to change up his claim a little bit. He starts to say, well, men value advanced knowledge more than women in comparison to these other things, which is correct. But when he's saying it as a generality, it's clearly incorrect. And he doesn't seem to be able to tell the difference between the two, which is like a really bad thing in terms of like, you know, demonstrating that you understand how reasoning works. And again, we could dice this a million ways, which is what I was trying to do. Let's see if I can, I guess, let's just hear more what he has to say.
It's exactly a valuation comparison.
Right. So, and that's kind of the other thing that he talked about, which is incorrect, is that you don't have to just have something to compare it to be able to evaluate it, right? You can ask them on a scale from 0 to 100. How can you think that? I don't know where he's getting this idea that it has to be in comparison to something else. You can just ask them how much they value it on a certain scale, right? And if, you know, and if there's a difference there, then that's something else, but by comparison.
Yes, it's like you can't just say I value X.
Right, so I could have academic freedom, advanced knowledge, academic rigor, social justice, emotional well-being. I could have work-life balance, right? And it could be such the case that a bunch of men are putting a bunch of their chips into the work-life balance category now, whereas maybe women are not. And then, now we're in a situation where more women have more of their chips in advanced knowledge than men. And so are we going to then generalize and say that, well, no, women value truth or advancing knowledge more than men? This is ridiculous. This is not how reason works at all. Now, again, he can say, based on these five criteria, that's true, but he's not saying that. Notice, I don't want to have to go back to the beginning here, but I just said men value truth more than women, which isn't even what's being said here, which is worse. It's worse that's not what's being said here. I know he'll probably say that I'm like being pedantic or persnickety, but you know, in like the world of people who care about truth, the particulars matter. So, but let's continue to watch it.
It's I value X, meaning I value this more than that. That's what value means.
So you don't think, I mean, you couldn't ask like from a scale of 0 to 100, how much do you value that?
Yes, and that's what they did, except they used it in terms of you got 100 points, you got to allocate these 100 points to...
Yeah, see, now he's like just so interested in talking over me and not listening to what I'm saying. You could just ask people on a scale of 0 to 100, how much do you value this thing, right? You could do that, and that would be another way of trying to assess in some way how they value that thing, right? If they say 100, you'd be like, oh, they must really value that thing. If they say like 5, then you go like, oh, they probably don't value that thing very much. You can make these types of assessments, but he just skips right over that and goes, yeah, that's what they're doing. No, they're not doing what I said. They're doing something different, but you're not listening close. You know, Doug was not listening close enough to really be able to tell that difference, unfortunately.
Different categories.
Right. So then you have to pick and choose. So it's not how much you just value the thing. It's how much you value it in comparison to other things.
I'll give you that.
You'll give it to me. That's what you're saying. What do you mean you'll give it to me? That's what you are saying. You're the one saying that the statement, men value truth, men value advanced knowledge more than women, is true. Or you're dancing around it in some way that if a Christian was doing it, you wouldn't like. Which, again, you'll see him do several times.
If you want it. But I'm sensing that you don't like the results.
No, I'm fine with like the data. I'm the issue that I have is right. Yeah. So he has an issue with the reasoning. I'm trying to explain to him the issue with the reasoning. He doesn't see an issue with the reasoning. He is hell bent on being correct on this, and so I must be the one that has the issue with the results. There are plenty of things that I could say that I'm sure about women as a group that I'm sure that people generally would find controversial, that women would find controversial. It's just, I really think about when I want to make a claim about something, I hold a high bar, right? Like, I understand that, like, it's really important to make claims that are, like, correct and not just let stuff fly out of your mouth or go based off of your intuition and feeling, which Doug doesn't think he does. He doesn't think he is that person, but he is. Again, this isn't saying anything about the opponents that he talks about, because I would agree with him on that certainly there are people that have that same issue on the left as well. And I am also in Discord, so if you want to join and talk there, I'm not going to be on very long because I do have some errands to run, but I kind of wanted to, I guess, get this off my chest because it's really hard to do with Doug being condescending and thinking that he understands, that he's being reasonable when it, like, it's very apparent that he's not, and someone's like there explaining it to him in an ABC fashion, as with the conclusions being drawn from it.
What conclusions being drawn from this?
Again, that, see, now he already knows the answer to this question. He already knows the answer. We've talked about it several times. The conclusion that men value truth more than women, or that men value advancing knowledge more than women. Those are the two claims. Those are the two conclusions. It's been the same throughout, but you know, this is Doug when he's actually confronted with somebody challenging his reasoning. He does it well in some other videos. He's good at pointing out other people's reasoning issues in Christianity. He starts to lose touch when it comes to politics. I think because of emotions. Women don't value truth as much as men.
But look.
Again, this is
advancing.
Yeah, see, he thinks that's the same thing. He thinks that is the same thing. Sorry, I know I'm kind of being a dead horse at this point, but I just want it to be out there. I want it to be out there that nobody can say that they didn't try to reason with Doug, that they're just being emotional with Doug, that they're really trying to explain the particulars of what he's saying and what's wrong with what he's saying, and not just, because I'm not going to do that. I'm never going to tell Doug, I just don't like the topics that you talk about. I saw that there was somebody later in the show that did that. I'm not going to do that. I'm fine with people talking about topics. I think open discourse is an important thing. I'm never going to just say, well, I don't like what you say. There was a person in another video that he was having a conversation with, and they were just kind of lamenting about how disappointed they were in Doug. I don't give a shit about any of that. The problem that I have is that Doug has problems with reasoning, and he's really just not, like, owning up to it and saying, like, yeah, I'm messing up here. Yes, you're right. I can say that on these 5 scales, given these 5 scales, we can talk about sample sizes, but I'll grant him that. Let's go ahead and pretend that all men and women did it, which they didn't. But let's just pretend. Let's pretend. Then yes, men value advancing knowledge more than women in comparison to these 5 things. But if you don't add that in comparison to these 5 things, your statement becomes incorrect. It becomes incorrect. It is no longer specific enough to be correct. I don't know how many ways to explain this, but and he starts to do that later in the debate, I guess.
Into other things.
Advancing knowledge, men.
And now he's just being condescending.
Women,
right,
27.
He's trying to keep it really simple because
that's that men value advancing knowledge more than women. How can you deny that?
Yeah, so he's trying to keep it really simple because that's the only way for him to be right here. So he wants to ignore the fact that it's in comparison to other things. Just look at the lines, right? Just look at the lines. Don't look at all the other information and think critically about what we can say and what we can't say. Let's just say it. Let's go with our gut. What does our gut tell us? Well, our gut tells us that women don't value truth, not nearly as much as men, right? This is his gut talking, and women are they're really emotional, and so they're all about that social justice stuff because they're not logical like men. Like this is ridiculous. Again, I could talk about a bunch of stuff that I'm sure he would think was controversial and that may paint women in a bad light. But I'm just not for it's going to be based off of like it's going to be very specific claims. And it will actually probably apply to not just women, but men as well. I'll say that. Most of the thing, pretty much every criticism I have about women is the same one that I have about men and vice versa. I can try to think of other ones, I'm sure, but any flaw that I find in women as a group, I don't think is particular to women. I think it's like a human thing. It's kind of in all of us.
For these 574 people, you can say they're lying, or you can say this is
you could, but I'm not saying
there has to be a mistake. But for these 574 PhD students and undergraduates, whatever, can you not say for these 574 that the men value advancing knowledge more than women?
No.
You can't.
No.
Not for these five. So you're saying that they're lying?
No, I'm saying that I would want to know, like, if I just ask them as individuals how much they value, say, the advancing of knowledge.
Yeah, and for the women,
he
26, for the men, 33. There's your answer.
No, that's in comparison to other things.
If we removed these four...
It's like, let me...
I'm not telling him he's right. Doug doesn't like not being told he's right. I am going to continue to play this, but it's not going to one of my channels, so I will have to download it and then upload it to there, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. I'm working on making this stuff better, but I guess it is what it is. All right, let's finish this out.
Let's see if I can like come up with an analogy. Let me like, if you had to allot money, about like if you had $100 to allot and you had to like allot how much you cared about your kids versus your wife, and somebody like gave, let's say, $70 to their kids and $30 to their wife, and somebody else gave $70 to their wife and $30 to their kid, does that mean that the first person doesn't value their wife as much as the second person?
Quaid, not what you just said.
And see, here you're about to hear him insult me, and it's again going to be because he doesn't listen. So he's not a good listener. He doesn't let people complete their sentences, and he doesn't understand what I'm saying ultimately, because he thinks I'm saying it means they don't value your wife. And you could think that if you just cut me off like you just did. Right? If I was just cut off there, then of course you would think that, but you can hear me if you listen real close. I'm going to go back a little bit, see if I can get it right.
If we removed these four...
It's like, let me let's see if I can like come up with an analogy. Let me like, if you had to allot money, about like, if you had $100 to allot and you had to like allot how much you cared about your kids versus your wife, and somebody like gave, let's say, $70 to their kids and $30 to their wife, and somebody else gave $70 to their wife and $30 to their kid, does that mean that the first person doesn't value their wife as much as...
Did you hear me there? As much as where I'm talking there still, right? And then now listen to what he thinks I'm saying. So just poor listening skills.
Quaid,
not,
what you
and
just
an
said
insult.
is stupid.
Yep, and an insult.
It's not a
well, he's not insulting. He's not calling me stupid.
Oh, I don't value it. It's
right. Oh, I don't value it. That's not what I said. Right. So, and again, he didn't call me stupid, by the way. He just said what I said was stupid, but it's because he doesn't listen. That's the issue. Doug does not listen. He's got a listening issue. He's got a listening issue, and he's got a reasoning issue, and he's got a smugness issue as well. Those are not good combinations in a human being.
I value something more than another. And your example you just brought up, person A values their kids more than their wife, and person B values their wife more than their kids. It's not, right. They're not saying, oh, I don't value them. I just value them.
That's not what I said. So great. that's perfect.
No. Can you explain it?
Yeah, okay. And then it's just like...
I'll explain it to you like you're a...
This was like so simple that I was just like, okay, he's got to explain this. He just must not, like, I was assuming at this point that he had, like, actually still, like, he knew what I was going to say, because he cut me off. So he must understand what I'm going to say. And then it became obvious that he just didn't, you'll hear me say it, but it became obvious he didn't understand what I was saying. And yeah, I mean, you got to listen to people. You got to listen to, like, the full of what they're saying in order to understand what they're actually saying. And so, yeah, now we get to listen to, again, more condescension when it's like, it was much simpler than that.
5-year-old.
Okay, do that.
Right. Yeah, so now I already understand. Obviously, it doesn't mean someone doesn't value something, right? I understand that. Duh, right? But we're talking about comparisons here, and that's, again, the thing that he's trying to avoid.
If I say I value my toy truck more than my Curious George monkey, is that the same thing as saying I don't value my Curious George monkey?
And that was never the issue. He just had to listen for a couple more seconds, and he would have gotten there. That wouldn't have been convenient for him or his argument, but he would have gotten there.
No.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay, so I don't think you understand what I'm saying then.
Okay.
And he doesn't.
Help.
So
Talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
All right, so we have our, what was it, a toy truck?
And Curious George monkey.
And a Curious George monkey, right?
Yeah.
And you tell these kids, okay, you have $100. You can decide how much you think each one is valuable. And you have one kid that values the again, they give $70 to the toy truck, and they give $30 to the monkey, and the other one does the reverse. Do you think you can say that the other kid values the toy truck more, that the first kid values the toy truck more than the other kid?
What did the first kid say it was?
The first kid gave $70 to the truck.
Okay. And what did the second kid give to the truck?
30.
Yeah. 70 is more than 30, Quaid.
Yeah.
And again, yeah, the condescension again, and it's just like, I'm trying to make a point here, and I make the point, but he doesn't care about the point. He cares about being correct. That is, like, first and foremost in Doug's mind, is to buoy his self-esteem.
I understand that, but we have, again, that's in comparison. So, like, again, going back to children and wives.
This might cut off, by the way,
Quaid,
because he's still live.
You seriously don't understand this. 70 is more than 30. That's,
I'm not
by
the one
definition,
who doesn't understand, Doug.
Person A values the toy truck more than person B.
Doug, but there's a lot of things.
Yeah, so I guess for anybody that's also struggling with this, right, you can't say that the person values the toy truck more than the other person, because you haven't compared it to all the other things. The kid could throw the truck away, right? And that wouldn't mean that the other person values the truck less. Or we could say, okay, we have a toy truck, and you have a bear, and you have a, I don't know, like a kitchen set or something like that. And now the little boy puts all of his chips into the kitchen set, but the other boy, he now puts all his money on the truck. So is there a contradiction now? Are we living in two universes simultaneously, where the boy both does value the truck more and doesn't value the truck more? No, you just can't say the boy values the truck more than the other boy. That boy A values the truck more than boy B. You can say he values it in comparison to the other things. But if you take that off the table, it becomes a generalization. And you can't do that. It's bad reasoning.
Things to compare it to. That's my point. You don't know how much that person actually values,
or at least,
thing.
Smart researchers don't do that.
We're comparing two things. Do you value the toy truck or the monkey?
Right.
One person says, I value the toy truck more than the monkey. The other person says, I value the monkey more than the toy truck. And they're using numbers to quantify it. What's the problem?
Okay, so now let's say, so one would pay more for the truck than the monkey, right?
And at this point, I've kind of just got
now the other
tired
kid,
of the condescension when I'm making perfect sense, and Doug doesn't understand reasoning in this capacity, in what we're talking about. He doesn't understand how his reasoning is flawed here, and it's getting tiring trying to explain him when he continues to come off. It'd be interesting to have a debate with him. I would like to have a moderated debate with him. I think it would be a lot easier to show the issues here if that were the case. So maybe we'll see.
Throws his toys away. Now he paid $70 for that truck, but he throws his toys away.
Yeah. What then?
Does that mean that now do you think that that other kid values that truck more? Do you still think the kid that paid $70 for that truck values that truck more?
At this point, I want to point out that I've asked him yes or no questions at several points. I've answered yes or no questions, and he's not doing it. I don't think he's going to do it here again either.
Yes, because he has no.
Okay, no, he did do it. So never mind.
Even though he throws it away.
He throws the truck away too?
Yeah, he throws the truck away.
Well, he doesn't value it because it doesn't exist for him anymore.
Right, so it's in comparison.
Right, I agree.
Right, so he threw it away. That's why you would really want to ask, how much do you think this truck is worth?
When you Quaid, when you value something, it has to be in comparison. Otherwise, it has no meaning.
No, it can still have meaning. Like, you can still get some bearing, right? We do it in street epistemology all the time. How confident are you? We don't say, how confident are you in comparison to something else? We just ask, how confident are you? Now, can we call this quantitative, right? Not really, but it still does have meaning. So, yeah. So we'll get to the end here soon. I think I've made the point at this point. We can move on. But I just
90.
Yeah, 90. Yeah, no, it's more like on a scale of 0 to 100, or if you had $100, how much would you spend on just this one item, right? That's an assessment as well, and you don't have to compare it to how much they would spend on something else. This guy.
What does that mean, 90? Well, I mean, like 90 out of 100, I really value. But what's your baseline? What's the standard? Like what? It's like saying.
Yeah, but my point is, I don't think you should just treat it like those are the only two things that there is to compare it to.
And these people are not in the study.
But that's what you do when you say.
We're just not tracking analogies here.
Men value truth more than women. Because there's a lot of things that we could compare truth to.
Yeah.
And we would want to know some of those
this
want to know
basic
more
stuff.
than that.
Right? And they gave 5 categories, and they're saying, I want you to rank them. Do you think you can rank things, Quaid?
And again,
I mean, I'm pretty
I'm
sure
not the one with the issue.
Yes, you can.
Rank things.
So this is all they're doing.
Okay, so now imagine
making it worse.
You found out, right? So all those people who said, I value truth,
this is where, like, at this point, I had a tough time coming up with analogies because this guy was just he wasn't getting it. I've like softballed to him several times at this point, but he's like interrupting me, and just being condescending the whole time. So it's just like, okay, so I have to think of something within 5 seconds, or like this guy's gonna check out. I get that now. I see that. So shit. What's something else that you could throw on the list? And I threw out not the best criteria. I could have thought of I could have thought of 10 other perfectly good ones, if just given more than 5 seconds.
Those things are in conflict. I'm not exactly sure, but let's say that's the case. Yeah. Okay. And they say, yeah, of course I do. Now you ask them, okay, you ask all the men. You say, okay, how much do you value knowledge building over? And again, this is gonna just because. Because of the constraints of time, over racism. And they're like, I think I value racism way more.
Yeah, so this is where I just came up with something. I came up with a poor example. You could still do it. Like, which one do you value more, racism or, truth, right? And then their allotment might change. And then that shows how it's unreasonable to make the claim that men value knowledge more than women. That's a stupid claim to make based off this information. Nothing you do is going to make that smart. Like, nothing you say, no matter how condescending you are as a person, right? None of this is going to make that a good claim, given the information. But racism was a bad example. I shouldn't have used that one.
And you ask females, and they say, no, I obviously value knowledge building way more than racism. Now, of those two groups, who do you think values knowledge more?
And you can tell he's checked out at this point. I think it's because I used racism, so I'll give him some benefit of the doubt there. But, I mean, really, if you're going to take the time to interact with somebody, I listened to everything that he said. He could reciprocate. I think that would be an okay thing to do. And at that point, the answer is, oh, yeah, you can't say that. You can't say that women value it more at that point because that's just based off of one thing of comparison. So, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I can't keep up with everything you're saying here.
Okay.
Yeah, I bet.
To be honest with you, Quaid, I think what you're saying is complete nonsense. And I think you're trying to push back, and you don't even know what you're saying.
I'm being very clear about what I'm saying. I've been clear the whole time at this point, right? If you're comparing it to other things, you can't make a general statement. That's it. That's very clear. That's a very clear thing.
I know exactly what I'm saying. I'm talking about comparing it to multiple things.
Yeah,
not just the one thing.
Quaid, that's what this study did.
But you can do that in more than just this study. There's more than just this
yes,
study.
Yes, Quaid, you can do that with more things. You can make more categories. Yes, you're right. Your point is?
Right. My point is
it's right here.
That we could compare it in another way, and women might end up valuing truth more on a different scale than this one.
Right. You're right. If you have different comparisons, they might.
Okay, so you hear it we're on the same page. I would expect that from here we could get somewhere. From here we've stumbled into this common ground. And now I'm hoping it's a very simple answer from him at this point. Very simple. And if he could just give it to me, then we would be in agreement and we can move on with our lives. And that's what I was hoping would happen.
Value.
Exactly.
Okay, but now we're comparing these things with each other.
Sure.
So let me ask you a question. Have you gone to graduate school?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever have to take the GRE?
No.
Have you taken any type of test where they actually...
Yeah, so if you were going to be tested on this, which I have been, no thinking person is going to give you a quiz that says on this chart, or no, they might say it that way, but given the information on this chart, who values knowledge more, men or women? It's going to be more specific than that because the people making the test understand how reasoning works. Generally speaking, you might see it on some tests, but researchers aren't going to do that. I think they actually do make this claim. You're going to hear him say that he's not making this claim really, really soon now, but
they ask you questions on how to read graphs?
Yeah.
Okay. So you know how to read graphs, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is a little test question for you. Based on the left graph, what thing out of these 5 categories, which thing do men value the most?
Advancing knowledge.
Okay. Which thing does men value the least out of these 5 categories?
Social justice.
Okay. Compared to women, do men value advancing knowledge more or less than women?
More.
Compared to women, do men value social justice more or less than women?
Less.
Thank you for coming on, Quaid. That's what this chart's saying.
Therefore, okay, so then just to put a pin in it, therefore men value knowledge, advancing knowledge more than women. That is your claim. You're going to stick to that.
You just said that, not me.
No, I didn't just say that.
I didn't either.
I read the chart.
We read the chart.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, right.
Okay.
Yeah, so then you're not saying that that's a claim that you're accepting based off of this information.
I'm accepting.
You understand that that would be incorrect.
What's incorrect?
To say that men value advancing knowledge more than women based off of this chart is incorrect.
How would I know that if that's...
So I did something incorrect here. In all this hullabaloo, this is where I have to admit I've done something wrong, because I incorrectly said that men value advancing knowledge more than women. That's actually just an incorrect statement on my part. So it would actually have to be in comparison to the other things. You would have to say that. Otherwise it becomes a generalization, which is incorrect. Right? Or you can say like on this chart. There are other ways around it. Like you can say on this chart, right? And it can still be correct, but it just is a statement. Men value knowledge more than women. It is really stupid to think that that is true based off of this chart. That's really dumb.
It's true or not?
Yeah, you would probably need more data.
So your main beef with this is it's just based on 594 people.
No,
he thinks data can only come in the form of more people. It's so bad.
My main beef, I really just have an issue with the discrepancy between the information.
Let me ask you this, Quaid. Let's say every human being on the planet that can talk and respond is in this, represented in this chart. What conclusions can you make from this then? Every single person on the planet's been polled.
You could make the conclusion that men value advancing knowledge more than social justice, and women
this is also where I did misspeak as well.
Social justice more than advancing knowledge. If that's the
you're reading the chart.
Yeah. That is, I did read the chart incorrectly there. That is true.
No, you're wrong there. Look at the heights.
Okay.
I mean, it is like tangential to what we're talking about, but I'll take the hit. Yeah.
This is why it's important to be able to read charts. Women actually value advancing knowledge more than social justice. You see that?
He thinks this is a reading charts issue rather than knowing what charts mean, knowing how data can lead us to certain conclusions, how it can't lead us to other ones. It's a fundamental reasoning issue.
Yeah, I misspoke. Whatever.
Yeah.
But the point is that you can't conclude that men value advancing knowledge more than women, generally speaking. That's my
No, not generally speaking. Remember we polled every single person on the planet.
Okay,
but when you say it,
even in these groups, you can't. Even in these groups.
If we polled every single person on the planet and we got
I think we're just
result,
there's a disconnect
are you
at this
saying
point.
You cannot say that women, compared to men, value advancing knowledge less?
No. Yeah, I am saying that. Even
if those people themselves...
Yeah, I'm trying to, if you notice, I'm trying to listen to exactly what he's saying so that I can get it correct. And no, you can't say that. He thinks you can, though.
Say that.
That's bad.
No, if they said it themselves, at that point, then I would agree with you.
Well, they are saying themselves because they've been polled.
No, if men were saying, if all women were saying I value knowledge less than men, then I would agree with you. That is a claim that you can make. I would say, we should probably go with what women are saying.
Yeah, see, that's a high bar.
I mean, this isn't like
compared to men, women they place less value on advancing knowledge on these 5 categories.
And there he says it perfectly well. It's correct there. But for some reason, he thinks that's the same thing as saying men value truth more than women and men value advancing knowledge more than women. He thinks that those are the same statements. That's bad. And I do, I don't want to nitpick too much, but this guy is a conservative by his own admission, right? And again, this is not to say that liberals don't also have reasoning issues. Plenty of them do, right? But if you want to present conservatives as being able to be reasonable, then Doug is a bad example. In fact, Doug is a worse example because Doug has shown that he can reason when he's talking about religion, in which he takes a stance on, but he can't really seem to be able to do that when he's talking about politics. So it's like his brain shuts off when he's talking about politics. It's weird.
Sure. Okay, if every human on the planet answered this way, then you could make that general statement. It's no longer general. It's specific to the whole planet. that compared to men, women place less value on advancing knowledge
than social justice.
Than men. No, they place more. They place more value on advancing knowledge than social justice. Read the chart.
So again, hold on, really quick though. Like, so if we do the same thing, okay, and now instead we put.
I wonder if I could like find a chart reading test. I'm gonna do that. Maybe this would be something where I would recognize that I was actually incorrect on this. If somebody could explain to me how you can reason that men value advancing knowledge more than women based off of this chart, and really, if you ask that question anywhere, the question is going to be posed like that, exactly like that. Look at this chart. Who values advancing knowledge more, men or women? Or would it be more specific? You know, based on this chart, who values advancing knowledge more in comparison to academic freedom, academic rigor, social justice, and emotional well-being? Which at that point, it's correct.
Again, you could put a number of things here, right? You could put like any number of things here.
Why are you saying this?
Because I'm trying to get you to see that you cannot make the claim based off of this information.
Make what claim?
That men value. I'm trying to be as specific as I can. Advancing.
I kind of want to do this Doug style because this is where he does it. I'm pretty sure. But you know, where I just have him saying I'm not making claims, and then just like a series of videos of him either making claims or accepting claims, which is essentially the same thing here. Yeah.
Knowledge more than women.
He does that a lot, where he says, I'm not making a claim, and he's making a claim. I'm not making a claim. This is like another conversation I have with him. I'm not making a claim. I'm making an inference. And it's like, the guy doesn't know that inferences are claims.
You cannot say that.
On these 5 different categories that are...
On these
yep.
5
different... So it's like we're getting... When we get to that point, we agree, right? So it's like right there in front of his face. It's right there.
Categories... In comparison to
then you can't say it, right?
You can not, but you're saying it as a generality.
I'm not saying it as a generality. Where do you get this from?
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to try to go back and find that spot, but I said it as a generality. I said men value truth more than women. That's a generality. Men value advancing knowledge more than women. That's what a generality sounds like, Doug. I don't know if you knew that, but that is what it sounds like.
Saying
that's what
read
it says
the chart.
That's what it says in the article. That's when I first
it doesn't even say
that
in the article.
To get you.
Yeah, I think it says that in the article. I want to go look at it, but
well, that would be nice if I had the article to.
Well, you'll have the article after this live stream is done. I'm going to psychologize you, okay? Is that all right?
Sure.
I'm not interested in this part, so I'm going to skip past this.
For you.
It's icky.
Okay. Right? Because if somebody hears you that, I can tell you right now, like, somebody can hear you that, and they'll be like, Doug is a sexist. And if you just say, hey, men value knowledge more than women, then I'll go, yeah, Doug is really, like, he's got to have some ulterior motive.
Yeah, if, like, you're using poor reasoning to support a claim that disparages a group, then I am going to be convinced that you're sexist or racist or whatever group you're disparaging. If you're using poor reasoning to get to that claim, then I'm going to say, yeah, you are that thing. If you're not, right? Like if you are just like, if you were just sharing, like he has a video where he talks about Democrats and he shares like the top 20 cities where the murder rates per capita are the highest. And I think most of them, maybe all of them, I have to go back and look. He said all of them at one point in a conversation we were having, and I don't think it is all of them, but most of them or all of them are Democrat. If he then were to say, so in the top 20 cities, that are in which people voted for Biden, the murder rates per capita are higher. That can paint Democrats in a bad light, and I would be like, that is true, Doug. It is. But to then say that the murder rates are higher per capita in Democrat areas is ridiculous given that information. There could be, I had an extensive conversation with him that I'm actually probably going to show. But he's not, again, there's a disconnect between his ability to see what his information can prove and what it is not sufficient to prove.
Motive here, because you cannot infer that. If he says men value these knowledge charts more than women on these 5 criteria, and somebody calls you a sexist, I would come in and say that's based off, he's basing it on.
Yeah, if he was really specific, like he was like, in this study, right, or this polling, men value advancing knowledge more than women when, you know, in comparison to academic freedom, academic rigor, social justice, and emotional well-being. I didn't say that the best way, but there's a very correct way to say that and a very wrong way to say that. And if somebody were to say, you're sexist for sharing that information, I would be like, I'm with Doug on this. And I've been with Doug on some things where he is essentially doing that, or with other people where they're sharing facts. And it's just like, if they are in any way, if they're being even sly about it, like they're saying, I'm not making a claim and being evasive like Doug is doing here, then, you know, I'm going to be like, no, this person is full of crap. This person is making this claim. They're pretending like they're not for some type of Mott and Bailey situation, but they're clearly making the claim. Or if they're just flat out making the claim, you know, I'm gonna have an issue with that. I'm gonna have an issue if they're saying that they can infer a claim based off of information that doesn't support it, versus if they're just sharing it. It's just like, no, like I know this person, you know, like this person, even, you know, if I even knew Doug, like if Doug hadn't said in this conversation several times at this point that men value women more, or men value truth more than women. I'm gassing here, obviously, at this point, but men value truth more than women at this point. Men value advancing knowledge more than women at this point. If he hadn't either said that or endorsed that in some way, then this wouldn't be a conversation. Or if I even knew that he was just like, no, I don't think that. That's ridiculous to believe, right? I'm just saying in comparison to these other things, we'd be square, right? There'd be no issues here. And anybody that came out and said like, no, I have a problem with him sharing that, just you shouldn't share some information, this and that, I'd be like, on this topic, I disagree with you. I disagree with you. I think if he's trying to have some other conversation, that might be important. But unfortunately, he is making claims he can't make based off the information. He doesn't seem to know it.
The information. Like, you have to be fair to him. So that's the difference, ultimately. Is that it really paints different pictures.
Why would this be sexist?
Yeah, I don't think he's listening to what I'm saying at this point. But I think that's it.
In any way, so, why would this be sexist?
Because I think there's a stronger chance of something being sexist if somebody's making a specific claim and their information doesn't match that claim, but they really want it to, and they kind of stick to the claim.
Sexist against who? Men or women?
Women in this case.
See, my psychology was correct.
Your psychology was correct because I'm saying that you're potentially sexist against women because you're making a claim that isn't supported by the information, right? And you're sticking to it, and it's being pointed out to you. And again, I guess you just don't understand the reasoning components of it, and that is just an ignorance thing. But ignorance and sexism tend to go hand in hand. Same thing with racism and a lot of other things. They tend to go hand in hand. The question is, why can't you see this? Why do you think, Doug, that you can say men value truth more than women as a general statement, or men value advancing knowledge more than women as a general statement? They're general statements already. We don't have to make them general. They are general. Then it's convincing me you're sexist because you keep making those points based off of information you can't use to make them. You can't reasonably use to make them. So I'm going, okay, this person really doesn't care about reasoning so much. They just want to believe that men are superior and that they value truth, and men are logical and truthful and women are emotional, when really everyone's, like, the vast majority of people are emotional in today's society, I would say. Or a lot. I don't know if I could say the vast majority, but a lot of people are emotional, both men and women. They seem to just have different emotions.
You're assuming this makes women look bad. So you're saying sexist.
If men value truth, if women don't value truth, let's say it that way. If women don't value truth, that would make women look bad, right? Or if they didn't value advancing knowledge, right? But luckily that's not what's going on here. At least it would make it look bad to me, maybe to somebody else, or if you're talking to some postmodernists, something like that. That's where me and Doug would start to agree, but he...
Against women. Why couldn't you say this is sexist against men? How dare they not value social justice?
So he knows the answer to this.
Why didn't you say that?
Not what
you didn't go there.
Right. Yeah, and if you had like started the video out with, I think I've read it too. I'm pretty sure that
you read it somewhere that men are more aggressive than women.
Yeah, and this is where, I could have found studies, and there's a lot of different ways to measure it. Maybe men aren't more aggressive than women, but I would be more willing to say, okay, I shouldn't have made that statement than to lower my bar so that I can say, men don't value truth. Doug's an intuitive guy, or women don't value truth as much as men. Doug is an intuitive guy. So to him, his gut is telling him that things are true. Whereas like my gut did tell me that men are more aggressive than women, but my rationality, my brain, my reasoning went, well, you don't have the data right in front of you and you should probably have that. So it's just like, okay, I'll walk that back. That's reasonable. That's what reason sounds like.
Yeah, I think that...
and you just come to this general conclusion that all men are more aggressive than women? Is that what you're saying?
Okay, so... All right, fine, whatever. I'll walk that back. It doesn't matter. These are all guesses. Okay, I mean, I could look up specific data.
You're using data to make that conclusion, that claim that men are more...
And this also doesn't jive well with like his view that like I won't look at like men, or never mind.
More aggressive than women. Why can't you do that with this chart?
I would be more comfortable saying that what I just said is incorrect than trying to make a chart fit a claim that it shouldn't fit.
So if I had a chart about...
You're right, I don't know exactly that men are more
aggressive. If I had a chart about the aggressiveness of men versus women, are you going to push back just as hard?
No, I wouldn't.
Why are you pushing back hard on this then?
Yeah, it's because of the construct of this thing, right? So if you're trying to measure somebody's aggressiveness and you're comparing it to other things like this, then I would push back against it. Like, this is really simple. If you just ask a bunch of women on a scale of 0 to 100, how much do you value truth, right? And they say like 60%, 70%, and men say like 80, 90% on average, right? And it's a fairly large sample size. That might paint women in a negative light, but I would still be like, okay, there is reason to believe that men value truth more than women. I haven't seen this data. This is made up, but I would not be willing to accept anything like that if I was afraid of data painting certain groups in bad lights, right? I mean,
it depends on what we're looking at. Okay, so right now we're talking about a hypothetical data set that I don't have. So like,
yeah, that
like
was my
if you were
issue.
doing it like this, then yes, I would.
Okay.
If you were setting it up like this, where you're just like,
read the link. Read the link. I'll put the links in the description after we're done, and you can peruse this and click there's a ton of links in here. You can
I think
click
that's it.
Links, and I know you love to go into detail, and so you'll love,
as any reasonable person should want to do. Okay. Yeah, so I'll stop that there. I might be beating a dead horse, and I don't want to pick on Doug too much. But he has pretty much the same issue. It's going to be the same issue no matter what for anybody with reasoning, where there's a disconnect between their information and reasoning. But let's see if I can, trying to be methodical about how I share my screen and stuff. So give me a second. I guess I'll go with this one. I think it was on this one too. Yeah, let me go to Doug Politics real quick. Pinecreek. There's another video. I don't know. Is it bad to show the? Are you not allowed to show the comment sections? I'm not sure, so I'm not going to do it. But it's there. The receipts are there. And basically the idea is he thinks that because the most of the top 20 cities, let's even say all and be charitable, of the top 20 cities mostly voted for Biden, and they had the highest murder rates per capita, that then means you can conclude that across the whole U.S., given how many cities there are, right? There's a bunch of different cities, a bunch of different locations, that you can infer that murder rates per capita are higher in, let's be charitable and say, areas that voted for Biden. And this is, again, ridiculous. For instance, we can look at the bottom 20 cities with the lowest rates and the ones with zero from the same website he gets his information from, by the way. The only cities with no murder rate per capita are all Democrat. And so that's going to push that, they have people in them, right? That's going to push that number down, right? It's going to push that number down. And if you look at the top 20, most of them are Democrat. So all those lower numbers are going to push that murder rate capita down. And I don't think he's actually done the math. I think he just saw that. He knows what he wants to conclude, and he thinks, okay, I have my data and I have the claim I want to believe. Therefore, I have a good argument. And it does not work like that. All right. That is it for me right now. I do want to do this more. And I am going to do this more. Get my chops up, so to speak. I'll definitely go on Doug's again and try again. I want to talk to Doug. I would want to debate Doug even. Maybe I won't go on again just because I would want like a moderator. It's really hard to explain to this guy. This guy just takes it. He just takes it on directions that you're not really going. I don't see why I wouldn't try again. I'll probably go on it again, but in terms of it would be better to debate him just because like he would get his time and then I would get my time and I could pick apart what he's saying pretty easily for the audience to see. It's harder to do when you got this guy jumping down your throat because I'm not going to say why he does it. I've made some assertions here that I would walk back. I'm not saying that he's doing any of this on purpose. I do think he thinks he's reasonable. I think he thinks that that those claims are reasonable based off the information, and he just hasn't really thought critically about it or had someone explain it to him why he can't do these things. And that's the problem that some liberals have with you, Doug. It's not because we don't like you talking about this stuff. Some do. Some liberals don't like you talking about this stuff. I disagree with them. It's not because you are saying things that you're giving facts that make them uncomfortable. Again, some people are going to do that, or because they're highly emotional. This is another thing, claim levied. It's going to be true for some liberals. And potentially even most liberals. I'm not sure. But if you go to your comment section, Doug, you will see there is a certain segment of the people watching you who are liberals who are actually engaging with your arguments. And you have to learn how arguments work in order to understand why what you're saying is incorrect. And so that's my issue with you. Or whenever I have an issue with you, that's my issue. I don't have an issue with you when you're making a good argument related to politics, which you've done, but you make a lot of bad ones. Kind of directing this at Doug now, even though he's not my audience, but I guess I just had to. This is all me warming up for this, so I'm gonna start to do this stuff more. I know it's getting darker in this room too, but yeah. Check in the descriptions for more information. Again, I'm thinking about doing a call thing, but I am going to I'm going to save that. I'm going to see if people engage through Discord first. And if it works there, then I might just continue to do that. But I want as many people to engage with this as possible. That's ultimately my goal. I'm hoping that we can learn to be better reasoners, hold higher standards, talk about how we know what we know. That's epistemology. That's what epistemology is. And there's lots of articles out there where you can engage with people thinking these exact same things, and you get a real sense of where the lines are drawn and how to connect the information to the claim. To work out the reasoning, and it's still not done. You have to think critically about the reasoning, and it becomes apparent when you really haven't done that. And so let's get the bad arguments off the table at least. Conservatives may end up being right, liberals maybe end up being right, but let's get rid of all the bad arguments, and I think it will make things clearer. And that's ultimately my goal and my mission with this platform. So, all right, thank anybody that ends up watching this.